sharing with you in this video 5 ways to have more self-trust when creating what you want in your life. And so the first way to have more self-trust when creating what you want in your life is to have, nobody wants to hear it, but it's really consistency over a long period of time. That's really the truth of the matter. And nobody really wants to tell you this, right? Most people want to give you the fluff and want to give you sort of like the half answer, where it's like they're motivating you, making you feel happy for a few moments, but then in the long term, you never have true success and what you're really looking for. And so that's a huge problem. And so really, when we begin to stop rushing the process of creating what we want, and we start to look at it from a long-term perspective of looking at things in the long term, what begins to happen is that you begin to have more self-trust within yourself. Self-trust is you taking action on such a consistent basis that you just know that you're the type of person that is going to get the result. You sort of have a natural confidence to how you do things because you have just simply done it so many times. At some point, if you produce so many repetitions and you do it with self-awareness and you do it with presence and you do it with consciousness and you do it again and again and again, eventually you're just going to become proficient at that thing. You're going to become good at that thing. It's almost like it becomes almost impossible for you not to become good at whatever it is that you're doing, simply because you're just taking so much action. And not only are you taking a high volume of action, but you're consistent over the long run. You're consistent over a long period of time. Now, the second way to have more self-trust when creating what you want is really to have an understanding that what you want to start to do is do not define yourself by your mistakes. You really don't want to do this because you're going to have problems that arise in your life. You're going to do things that you're not proud of. You're going to do things that you're not happy with. You're going to maybe be perfectionist sometimes. Maybe you're not going to be happy with the results that you're producing. And then you're going to make mistakes. You're going to have things go wrong. And so the truth of the matter here is that what I found to be very powerful in my life personally is to start to realize that there's no reason to define my identity by my mistakes, because mistakes are inevitable. Human error is inevitable. So when I make a mistake, why should I define who I really am by the mistake that I did just that one time? Maybe even if it's twice or 3 times, or maybe even more, it doesn't have to be put in a box of this is who I am now. It just doesn't need to be the case. What we have to begin to do is start to look at that situation in a way where we're not limiting our identity and who we believe we are because of a one-time situation mistake. Or maybe again, even twice or 3 times. So what we have to start to do is realize that challenges and situations happening do not need to define our identity. Mistakes happening do not need to define our identity. And then so what begins to happen is that if you begin to not define your identity by the mistakes that are happening, you quite literally open up more creative power to create whatever it is that you want in your life, more creative life force energy. And then so the third way to have more self-trust when creating what you want is to really have an understanding that, in my personal opinion, what I found is that all faith exists by directly connecting with the present moment. Whatever faith you have in your life, wherever it comes from, whatever religion it is, or whatever background you come from, the truth of the matter is that all faith leads back to the same truth, which is the truth of divine intelligence and God working in this present moment right now, which the same thing that creates me is the same thing that creates you. The same intelligence that's bringing life to my body and the words that I'm speaking to you right now is the same intelligence that's bringing life to you to be able to listen and to understand and to understand what I'm saying. And then also for you to be doing whatever it is that you want to do in your life. The same intelligence that creates me is the same intelligence, again, that creates you. And then so what we need to begin to realize as well is that all the faith that you could ever need to create whatever you want in your life is going to be by directly connecting to the present moment right now in whatever form gets you there, whatever kind of religion it is, whatever belief it is. What you want to start to get to a point in your life is not to a point of belief, but a point of knowing and a point of gnosis and true knowledge. True knowledge, not an information that you're learning that's theory, but true knowledge that's grounded in the present moment, where you have a knowing of the truth simply by being connected to the present moment. So that's really a powerful thing that you want to start to do when it comes to how to build more self-trust in your life on a daily basis. Now, the fourth way to have more self-trust when creating what you want is really to have an understanding that no attachment whatsoever to both the positive and the negative is really what you want to start to do if you want to start to have more self-trust in your life. Because what the ego does is the ego feels really good about the positive things in its life, but then when it comes to the negative, it feels really bad about those things. But then when you live from a place of not attaching to the positive or the negative, the positive becomes just what it is. It's not this amazing thing. Yeah, it's good, but it just is good. It's not amazing. Like, even if something is amazingly good, you don't amplify it more for what it is. And if something is, maybe just really bad, you don't make it worse than it is. You just see it for what it is. What the ego does is, while it's experiencing happiness and a strong positive high, it can't even really enjoy it in the present moment because it's actually continually playing back a fear of losing it. So that's the irony of it all, is that when you're attaching to the positive, you're scared of losing it and going back to the negative. And then when you're feeling negative, all you can think about is going back to the positive. And it's this crazy loop. Whereas if you ground yourself in the present moment, you don't really necessarily care whether it's positive or negative. Yeah, of course, you have a preference in terms of what you would rather create in your life, but then on the way to get there, you don't really care if you're comfortable or uncomfortable. Whether you're happy or sad. You're just transcending all of it and beginning to get to a place of really understanding that you can create the power of your state. You can create the state, by connecting to the power of being within yourself. So you can create your state from within. That's a power that you have, is to create your state from within who you really are in your life, which is, again, your direct connection to the present moment, your direct connection to the present moment and who you really are. So when you stop attaching to the positive or the negative, this begins to create, again, sort of a vortex of energy where you have more creative life force to create whatever it is that you want in your life. It becomes much easier. So it's not about being overly happy or overly sad, but then finding the peace and the groundedness in between the two. And so to conclude this video, the fifth way to have more self-trust when creating what you want is to really have an understanding that what we want to start to do is to create from a space of non-attachment. So this means controlling your thoughts, but not being attached to any of them. This means controlling your actions, but not being attached to them whatsoever. Understanding that you don't own anything in your consciousness whatsoever. It's just stuff happening. You can choose what aligns more exciting to you, what makes you feel happier, what makes you feel, you could say, more at peace. But remember, peace is prior to happiness or sadness. I guess you could talk about what makes you feel more excited, but from a space of consciousness and free will. Not from a space of where you feel threatened and your survival feels so threatened that you have to be better. Of course, survival is important. Taking care of your survival is important. But what you want to start to do is realize that what makes a human is really becoming something greater than just your survival instincts. There has to be something greater in life that uplifts your spirit than just your survival instincts. And this is what we want to start to do when it comes to creating the reality that you really want in your life. Because if you're just living your life based on your survival instincts, what you've done is that you've effectively blocked yourself from being truly what it means to be a human, which is to have that intelligence means to separate yourself from your survival instincts and to rise above them, not to remove them from your life, not to pretend that they don't exist, but really what you want to start to do is integrate them more powerfully by understanding that you do not need to attach to them while you're creating whatever it is that you want to create. So while you're creating the things in your life that you want to be creating, what you want to start to do is just have less attachment to it by being aware of the light of consciousness while you're doing things. Be aware of what is prior to any form while you're doing things in your daily life, which is then going to free up that creative life force power for you to not be attached to the past, not be attached to your past mistakes, not be attached to the, if you have it in the present moment, to be afraid of losing it, and then coming to a space of groundedness in the present moment where you start to realize that building self-trust is something that the only way you're going to do that is by controlling the things in your life that you actually have control over, and then simply letting go of the things that you can't actually control in your life by simply instead trusting in the divine intelligence within you so that you can naturally take the actions that you need to take to get the result that you're looking for from a space of course, non-attachment to it all.